Ah, yes, death. That old rascal we try not to talk about at dinner. We dress it up in black suits and solemn hymns, and we whisper about it as though it were a burglar sneaking through the window of life. Yet, you see, death is not the opposite of life, it is part of it. It's the rhythm that makes the dance possible. We are terribly serious about dying. We cling to our health, to our names, to our stories, as if somewhere, hidden in the fine print of existence, there's a clause that says, "You, dear sir or madam, shall be exempt." But the universe doesn't issue exemptions. It plays fair. Everything that comes, goes. Everything that rises, falls. And yet, strangely, nothing is ever lost. You see, the problem is not death itself, the problem is our idea of it. We think of life as a journey that begins at birth and ends at the grave, like a straight road from here to there. But in truth, life isn't linear, it's circular, like the beating of your heart, the pulsing of your breath, the turning of the stars. One movement in, one movement out. The tide rolls forward and slips back again. And you are that tide. We fear the end because we've made the mistake of thinking we began. We imagine ourselves as little creatures tossed into this universe, trying desperately to make sense of it all before the clock runs out. But what if it's the other way round? What if the universe is not something you were born into, but something that was born out of you? After all, where were you before you were conceived? Did you lie somewhere waiting to be called upon? Of course not. And yet here you are. So if non-existence before birth didn't bother you in the slightest, why should it trouble you after death? Death, you see, is the most natural thing in the world. In fact, it's happening to you all the time. You are not the same person who woke up this morning. Millions of cells have died since breakfast. Your body is shedding and renewing itself in every passing moment. Thought after thought arises and dissolves. Each breath is a tiny rehearsal for dying, in, out, gone. But we don't call it death, do we? We call it living, because it feels like continuity. Yet that continuity is an illusion, a trick of the mind, trying to freeze the flow of the river. You cannot stop the river, my friends, without losing the water. And so, the tighter you hold to life, the quicker it slips through your fingers. Now, imagine if you could see death not as a tragedy, but as the punchline to the cosmic joke. The universe laughs not cruelly, but kindly, because it knows that the one who dies is the same one who was never born. You are the rhythm itself, the going and the coming, the appearing and the vanishing. We say, I am afraid of death. But tell me which I is afraid. The I you were at 5 years old? The I from last week? They're all gone, aren't they? Each vanished into the ether, and yet somehow you remain. The pattern continues, though the pieces keep changing. So, who is there to die? Really, you are not a thing that was born. You are the very process of being. You are what the cosmos is doing, in this particular place, at this particular time, like a wave cresting in the sea. And when the wave subsides, the ocean does not mourn. It does not say, ah, what a pity, that wave is gone, because the wave was the ocean all along. And so, I like to think that death is not a thief coming to take something from you. It's simply the ocean drawing its wave back home. The end of one gesture and the beginning of another. The music fades not because it's over, but because it's becoming silence again, and silence, you see, is where the next song will come from. The truth of it is so simple, so obvious, that we overlook it. You cannot die, because you were never anything separate enough to begin with. What you call you is the universe peeking through a pair of eyes, feeling itself in the form of a heartbeat. And when those eyes close, when that heartbeat fades, the universe does not stop. It merely opens its eyes somewhere else. So, let us laugh gently at the solemn face of death, for it is not an end but a turning, a wink from eternity. The joke, my friends, is that you were never in danger at all. The game was never about survival. It was about remembering who's playing. Now, let's wander carefully, curiously, into that dazzling realm where science begins to sound suspiciously like mysticism. Quantum physics, that strange and wonderful playground where certainty evaporates and probabilities dance. You see, once upon a time, we thought the world was made of little solid bits, billiard balls bumping into one another, all behaving quite properly. But the physicists, bless them, looked closer, and what did they find? Not things, happenings, patterns of vibration, possibilities shimmering like fireflies before they decide to glow. And here's the delicious part. They found that nothing becomes real until it's observed. Until consciousness says, "Ah, there you are." It's as if the universe is shy. It won't show you its face until you look. So along came this remarkable idea, the many worlds interpretation. It says that at every decision point, reality doesn't choose, it branches. Every possible outcome happens somewhere. You die in one universe, live in another. You spill your tea in this one, but sip it peacefully in that one. Every version of you, doing every possible thing. An infinity of possibilities, all coexisting, shimmering side by side like reflections in a hall of mirrors. Now, some clever people have taken this to mean that somewhere you never die. That consciousness, being the observer, always finds itself on the branch where it continues, a sort of quantum immortality. You keep waking up endlessly, always in the world where you survived. It sounds marvelous, doesn't it? A scientific loophole in the law of mortality. But there's a trick hiding in the middle of it all. And this is where the mystics start smiling. Because if consciousness must always exist to observe reality, then it was never a product of reality to begin with. It's not something the universe made. It's what makes the universe appear. So when physicists scratch their heads and say, what collapses the wave function? What brings possibility into being? The answer is hiding right there, behind the question. You do. Not the little you with a passport and a phone number, but the great you, the awareness without a name. Now, don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying your personality will leap from one universe to the next like a cosmic tourist. No. The personality is just the costume. It belongs to the play, the awareness that wears it. However, that is something altogether different. It doesn't move through worlds. It contains them. So, perhaps what we call quantum immortality is simply the latest scientific way of describing something the sages have whispered for thousands of years, that consciousness doesn't begin with birth or end with death. It's the canvas on which all beginnings and endings are painted. You can picture it like this. The universe is a great mirror, and consciousness is the light that allows anything to be reflected at all. Without that light, there's no mirror, no reflection, no stars, no thoughts, no you, no me. Everything vanishes into the luminous darkness from which it came. And here's the grand cosmic mischief science. In its noble search for objective truth, keeps finding the observer hiding in its equations. Try as they might to eliminate the human element, they always end up staring at their own face in the glass. That's why I say with a bit of a chuckle that the physicist and the mystic are climbing the same mountain from opposite sides. The physicist measures reality with instruments, the mystic measures it by being it, and when they reach the summit, they meet and burst out laughing, realizing they were describing the same thing all along. So, you see, the many worlds may not be many at all. They might be the infinite ways the one sees itself. And consciousness, that slippery, shining mystery, is not a passenger in the universe, it's the driver. Perhaps this is what the old mystics meant when they said, "You are not in the world is in you." And so, when someone asks, "Does consciousness survive death?" you might smile and say, "My dear, it's the other way round. Death survives consciousness. Consciousness has been watching the show since before the first curtain rose." Now let's take this a little further, because the next question naturally comes. If consciousness doesn't belong to the body, then where is it? You see, we've all been brought up to think that consciousness is something trapped behind the eyes, sitting somewhere inside the skull, like a little man in a control room, looking out through two windows and pulling levers. That's the old picture, the me in here, looking at a world out there. But have you ever noticed that this division between inside and outside is purely imaginary? Try to find where you end and the world begins. Is it at the skin? The breath you exhale becomes the air another being inhales. The warmth of the sun strikes your face and becomes sensation. Are you so sure the sunlight isn't part of you? What we call the outer world and the inner world are simply two sides of one coin. Consciousness is not a prisoner inside a body. The body is a ripple within consciousness. Think of your body as a whirlpool in a great river. It seems separate, spinning in its own little circle, but in truth it is made entirely of the river's water, always flowing, never fixed. What you call your body is the river of the universe doing a very particular dance, the dance called you. When you look at the stars, you are not a tiny speck gazing up at a vast sky. You are the sky looking at itself. You are the universe, peering inward, playing a marvelous game of hide and seek. But, you see, we've been hypnotized into believing that consciousness depends on the brain, the same way a radio depends on its circuitry. We imagine that if you smash the radio, the music dies. But does it? The transmission continues, even if that one instrument goes silent. Consciousness is that broadcast, invisible, omnipresent, carrying every note, every frequency. This is why, when people speak of near-death experiences or mystical visions, they often say it felt more real than real. Because, for a moment, the static of separation drops away, and they glimpse the truth that the signal was never confined to the receiver. So when we say consciousness beyond the body, it's not that awareness floats out somewhere after death, like a ghostly balloon. No, it's that awareness was never in the body to begin with. The body is awareness shaped into form, a condensation of the infinite into the here and now. You might say, but surely my thoughts are mine, my feelings, my memories, they prove I'm a distinct consciousness. Ah, but watch closely. Your thoughts appear and vanish all by themselves, don't they? They bubble up like fish in a pond. And who is it that notices them? The observer of thoughts is not a thought. The witness of sensations is not a sensation. What you truly are is that open, boundless space in which everything comes and goes, the mirror that reflects but is never altered by what it shows. A mirror can hold mountains and oceans, faces and storms, yet when they pass, the mirror remains untouched. So it is with you. You are that clear awareness in which the world appears and disappears, moment to moment, lifetime to lifetime. Science may trace the circuitry of neurons, map the synapses, record the flicker of electrical signals, but it can never locate the experiencer, because the experiencer is the very light by which the scientist sees. This is why no instrument will ever detect consciousness. The observer cannot observe itself as an object. The eye cannot see its own seeing, and so the riddle persists. Everything we know is known through consciousness, and yet we keep searching for it as though it were somewhere else. But here's the great relief, the cosmic joke once again. You don't have to find consciousness, you are it. You don't need to go beyond the body, you've never been inside it. You've been the field in which both body and world arise. And when you begin to sense that, not as a theory but as a felt truth, an extraordinary peace comes over you. Because suddenly, death loses its teeth. The body may fall away, but the mirror remains. The dream dissolves, but the dreamer continues, or rather, the dreaming itself continues, endlessly reshaping, endlessly rediscovering itself. So the mystics say, when you awaken, you realize you were never born, and you will never die. You were simply pretending to be a fragment for the sheer joy of seeing yourself from 1,000 angles. And that, my friends, is consciousness beyond the body, not something distant, not something to reach, but what's happening right now. As these words appear in your awareness, you are the stillness that contains every motion, the silence that hears every sound, the infinite pretending to be finite for the pure delight of the play. Now, once you begin to sense that consciousness is not confined to your body, the next question slips in quietly like a cat through an open door. If I am not the body, then who am I? That question, my friends, is the oldest game in town. Philosophers and saints have played it for centuries. And the joke is, every time you think you've caught the answer, it disappears, like trying to bite your own teeth. You see, what we call the self, the me, the I, is not a thing at all. It's a pattern, a story, a convenient fiction, a kind of echo that arises when consciousness looks at itself and says, ah, that must be me. Imagine the surface of a pond on a still morning. The sun rises and a reflection appears. The pond might believe that it has the sun inside it, but in truth, it's only mirroring what's already there. The reflection isn't the sun. Yet without the sun, there'd be no reflection. That's the ego, the reflection consciousness, mistakes for the source. The trouble begins when the reflection takes itself too seriously. It says, I'm in charge. I must control. I must survive. And so it begins to fight with the world, to divide life into me and you, inside and outside, right and wrong. But the very act of trying to separate itself is what creates all the suffering. You see, the ego is like a wave that forgets it's the ocean. It believes it's an independent entity, rising heroically from the sea, terrified of falling back into it. But the fall isn't death, it's reunion. We humans live most of our lives as that frightened wave. We think, I must protect myself. I must become someone. I must make a mark so that I won't disappear. But the irony, the delicious irony, is that the I we're so desperate to defend was never there in the first place. You can't catch the self because it's the catcher. You can't escape it because there's nothing to escape from. The ego is a mirage created by language, by the habit of thinking there's a doer behind every deed. I think, I breathe, I walk. We say, as though thinking and breathing weren't simply happening on their own, like waves on the sea. The Buddhists call this the illusion of the separate self. The Hindus call it Maya. And the physicists, in their more poetic moods, call it the observer effect, the idea that the observer and the observed are one process. So, who is it that fears death? Who wants to live forever? Who suffers? It is the story of me. And the story of me is no more real than the lines on a map. Useful, perhaps, for navigation, but the map is not the territory. You were never the story. You are the blank page on which every story is written. You are the silence between the notes that makes the music possible. This is why all the great teachers, Christ, Buddha, Lao Tzu, spoke in riddles that dissolve the self. Whoever would save his life shall lose it. Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. The Tao that can be named is not the eternal Tao. Each of these sayings is like a finger pointing at the moon. But we keep worshipping the finger. We cling to our roles, our names, our opinions, our ambitions, as though the universe would fall apart if we stopped pretending. But when you finally let go, something extraordinary happens. You don't vanish, you expand. When the wave realizes it is water, it doesn't die, it becomes the whole ocean. When the self sees through its own illusion, the burden of being someone falls away, and what's left is freedom, a lightness, a playfulness. It's like waking up from a dream and laughing at how real it seemed. You see, the tragedy of life is not that we die, but that we forget who we really are while we're alive. We spend our days chasing reflections, money, fame, approval, thinking they will make us more real. But reality doesn't need proof. The mirror doesn't have to justify the reflection. And so, to glimpse your true nature, you don't have to meditate for decades or memorize scriptures. You simply have to really look at the one who says, I. Because when you look closely enough, you'll find there's no one there, just the looking itself. That's the miracle. The watcher is the watched. The seer is the scenery. The dancer and the dance are one. And once you see that, fear evaporates. For how can what was never separate ever be destroyed? How can what was never born ever die? So, my dear friends, the ego is a beautiful illusion, a mask the universe wears to enjoy its own play. Don't hate it, don't fight it, simply see through it. When the actor remembers he is not the character, he doesn't stop acting, he plays with joy, with depth, with abandon. That is liberation, not the end of the play, but the rediscovery that you were never trapped in it to begin with. So, now that we've unmasked this phantom self, this echo that imagines itself to be real, we can begin to look again at death, not as an ending, but as a movement, not as an annihilation, but as a change in rhythm. You see, everything in this universe is motion, vibration, pulse, heartbeat, breath. Nothing stands still. Nothing holds its shape for long. The clouds drift, the seasons turn, your thoughts come and go, and just as the inhale becomes the exhale, life becomes death. But the air, the breath itself, never stops moving. We have been taught to think of death as a cliff. One moment we're here, and the next we tumble into nothing. But that's only because we've mistaken the wave for the ocean. When a wave falls, we call it gone, but the water remains. It hasn't vanished, it's merely changed its gesture. When you burn a piece of paper, you say it's destroyed. But watch closely. It becomes smoke, ash, and heat. It doesn't disappear, it transforms. The form changes. The essence continues. The play of matter and energy goes on, reshaping itself endlessly. So too with you. The body is a marvelous pattern of energy, borrowed for a while from the stars, the trees, the food you eat, the air you breathe. And one day, the pattern shifts. It dissolves back into the field that gave rise to it. The molecules return to the soil, the warmth to the sun, the breath to the wind, and the consciousness that witnessed it all, that's not in the body. Remember, the body is in it. You can no more kill consciousness than you can drown the ocean by breaking a wave. Death, in this sense, is the universe taking off one mask and putting on another. The actor exits stage left only to reappear in a new costume. The play never ends, because there was never anyone truly separate from the stage. This is why, in the East, they don't take death quite so personally. They see it as the continuation of the cosmic rhythm, Shiva's dance, the endless creation and destruction that keeps the universe alive. One gesture gives way to the next, one form folds into another. It's only in the West that we've made the dreadful mistake of treating death as a failure. But what if it isn't? What if it's a return, a homecoming? You see, the self that fears death is like a raindrop, terrified of hitting the ocean, not realizing that the ocean was its source all along. We say, I will die. But look closer, who is this I? The body, the memories, the personality? Those are just ripples on the surface. The deeper water, the awareness underneath, was never born. How could it possibly die? This awareness is what watches even now, the same awareness that watched when you were 5, when you were 20, when you were asleep last night, and when you woke up this morning. The scenery keeps changing, the roles shift, the story twists, but the witness remains constant, silent, unbroken. So death, you see, is not the end of life. It is the end of the illusion of being someone living. Life does not belong to you. You are what life is doing, here and now. When you realize this, something extraordinary happens. The fear dissolves, and in its place comes a kind of laughter, the laughter of recognition. You realize that what you've been calling my life and my death were never yours at all. They were the great play of the cosmos, pretending to be a man or a woman for a while. When you fall asleep at night, the world disappears, doesn't it? And yet, in the morning, you wake again, and everything returns, fresh, renewed. Death is no different. It's the same rhythm on a grander scale. The dream ends, the dreamer rests, and then another dream begins. Now, some people ask, but what happens after death? And I always say, you'll find out the same way you found out what happens before birth. There's no need to worry. It will be perfectly familiar. You see, we were never conscious of the beginning, and we will never be conscious of the end, because the beginning and the end are the same. The circle doesn't have 2 points, only one, endlessly turning. And so, the wise do not cling to life, nor do they rush toward death. They understand that both are the same dance, 1 foot lifting, 1 foot falling. They walk with grace, knowing that what they truly are cannot fall, cannot end. Death is not the grim reaper come to collect a debt. It is the gardener, returning the soil to readiness for new growth. It is the silence into which the song dissolves, only to be sung again in a new voice. And so, the secret is not to defeat death, but to die before you die, to let go of the illusion of control, of separation, of me, to realize that what you are, this conscious presence, has never been touched by birth or death. It is the eternal witness of both. Then, when the final breath comes, you'll smile, because you'll know it isn't the end of you. It's just another breath in the lungs of eternity. Now, it's rather delightful that modern science, that proud, rational enterprise that set out to explain everything, has, in a strange twist of irony, found itself brushing against the same mysteries that mystics have been singing about for thousands of years. You see, the scientists began with the noble intention of discovering what the universe is made of. They built telescopes to peer into the heavens and microscopes to pry into the atom, hoping to find some ultimate brick of reality, some final solid thing upon which everything else stands. But the deeper they looked, the more that thing dissolved. Matter became energy. Energy became information. And information, well, that turned out to behave suspiciously like thought. They found that the observer could not be removed from the observation, that the very act of looking changes what is seen. Suddenly, consciousness, that inconvenient, slippery business of being aware, reappeared in the equations like a ghost they'd tried to exorcise. And so, in laboratories and universities, the most materialistic of all pursuits began to sound strangely spiritual. The physicists discovered what the mystics have always whispered, that reality is not made of stuff, but of relationship. In the ancient language of India, they said artha, the cosmic order, the dance of opposites. Modern physics calls it the quantum field. It's the same song, sung in different tongues. Now, don't get me wrong, science is a marvelous thing. It gives us aeroplanes and symphonies and tea kettles that whistle just so. But the danger lies in forgetting that it is, at its core, a way of playing with the universe, an exploration, not an explanation. When we try to turn science into a creed, when we imagine it will tell us the meaning of life, we miss its true beauty, because science, at its best, is an act of wonder. And wonder, my friends, is the very heartbeat of the soul. You see, the scientist and the mystic are not enemies. They are like two eyes of the same face. One sees with measurement, the other with meaning. One looks outward, the other inward. And when they look together, depth appears. The mystic says, all is one. The physicist says, everything is entangled. The mystic says, form is emptiness. The physicist replies, matter is mostly void. They are simply describing the same ocean with different waves. Einstein once said the most incomprehensible thing about the universe is that it is comprehensible. That's another way of saying the mind and the cosmos seem to speak the same language, but how could they not? You are the cosmos thinking about itself. When a physicist studies the fabric of reality, who is doing the studying? Reality itself, looking in the mirror. When a mystic closes his eyes and feels the pulse of the infinite within, who is feeling? The infinite itself, dreaming of being human. This is what I mean when I say that science has a soul and the soul has a science. They are not opposites, they are reflections. Science without soul becomes dry, a skeleton of numbers, and soul without science becomes sentimental, a cloud without ground. But together, they make the full picture, the dance of logic and love, reason and mystery. And here's the delicious paradox. The more science uncovers, the more mysterious everything becomes. The moment we think we've got it pinned down, it slips away like water through our fingers. Just as you cannot trap light in a box, you cannot capture reality in a formula. The universe keeps winking at us, as if to say, nice try. At the heart of every discovery lies a confession of ignorance. Every answer breeds new questions. And that, you see, is the mark of a living cosmos. It refuses to be finished. So, when the scientist peers into the quantum field and sees only probabilities, and the mystic sits beneath a tree and sees only God, they are seeing the same truth from two sides. The field is divine imagination. The particle is a thought of the universe. And perhaps when physics finally reaches its farthest horizon, when all equations are solved and all telescopes have peered as deep as they can go, they will find what the poets have always found, a vast silence, shimmering with awareness. In that silence, science will bow to wonder, and wonder will smile back. The two will meet not in conflict, but in recognition. For the soul of science is curiosity, and the science of the soul is awe. Both are the universe looking into itself, asking again and again, who am I? And in the asking, it keeps on creating. Now, we arrive at a most curious idea, immortality. Humanity's favorite fantasy and its deepest misunderstanding. You see, most people think immortality means living forever as the same me, the same face, the same memories, the same little bubble of identities stretched endlessly into time. But my dear friends, can you imagine anything more dreadful? Eternity as a repetition of your current personality, forever anxious, forever striving, forever slightly bored. That wouldn't be heaven, that would be hell, politely decorated. The real trouble is that we confuse continuity with eternity. We imagine immortality as an extension of time, when in truth it is the transcendence of it. Time, you see, is a marvelous illusion, a way for consciousness to experience change. But what you truly are is not in time. You are what time happens within. Think of a melody. Each note depends on the one before it, yet the music itself is timeless. It unfolds within a silence that never began and never ends. That silence is you, the eternal background upon which the song of life is played. When people speak of quantum immortality, they picture themselves leaping from one universe to another every time the body perishes, endlessly waking up in the world where they survive. But who is this they? The personality? The name? The story? Those are just ripples on the surface. The awareness behind them has never gone anywhere. The mistake is to think that immortality belongs to the wave, when it belongs to the ocean. The wave rises, curls, falls, but the water remains. You do not continue as the same pattern. You continue as the essence that was never born and can never die. You see, the ego dreams of everlasting survival because it senses its own impermanence. It clings to the idea of forever, like a child holding a toy too tightly. But the real you, the awareness watching this very thought arise, has no need of survival. It has never been threatened. When you understand this, the desire for immortality fades, and what remains is something infinitely richer: presence, the eternal now. The realization that each moment is complete, entire, and unending in itself. Eternity, you see, is not endless duration. It's depth, not length. It's this, right now seen without resistance. When you are fully alive in this moment, there is no time, because there is nowhere else to go. Look closely. Between the tick and the tock, between one heartbeat and the next, there's a gap, an infinitesimal silence. That stillness is eternity. The saints and scientists alike have been staring at it, trying to name it. God, Tao, the quantum vacuum, the ground of being. But whatever we call it, it is the same mystery, the unchanging presence that gives rise to all change. So immortality is not what continues, it is what remains. It is the stillness beneath the motion, the canvas behind the painting, the awareness behind every thought. You were immortal before you were born, and you will be immortal after you die, because birth and death happen in time, and you are not in time. You are the awareness of time passing the witness that never moves, never ages. Do you see? Immortality is not about lasting forever. It is about never having begun. The great paradox is that when you stop trying to cling to life, life reveals itself as eternal. When you cease chasing continuity, you find eternity in the space between moments. That is why all true teachers say, die before you die. Let the illusion of me fall away, and you'll discover that you were never merely the body that perishes, nor the mind that worries, but the luminous awareness within which all of this arises. To know this is not to conquer death, but to see through it, to laugh at it, because you realize that the one who fears death is just another passing thought, a character in the dream. The dreamer, meanwhile, has never woken or slept. So immortality, properly understood, isn't about endlessly breathing. It's about breathing in eternity now, this breath, this heartbeat, this glance, this laugh. For in the infinite play of existence, the only thing that ever truly exists is now. And that now, my friends, has no beginning and no end. It simply is. Now then, having wandered through the ideas of death, consciousness, and immortality, we come at last to the cosmic punchline, the grand hide-and-seek that the universe plays with itself. Suppose, for a moment, that you were God, not a man on a throne, but the boundless intelligence that breathes stars into being and turns dust into thought. You are all-powerful, all-knowing, infinite. After an eternity of being everything, of knowing everything, what would you do? You'd get bored. You'd say, let's pretend. Let's play a game. And the game would be hide and seek. You would hide from yourself so thoroughly that you'd forget who you are and then set off on the adventure of remembering. You'd become galaxies and grasshoppers, lovers and liars, saints and sinners, children and kings. You'd split yourself into billions of forms, each one believing it was separate, each one calling itself me. You'd live entire lives, suffer heartbreak, make discoveries, write poems, and one day, maybe after 1,000 lifetimes, or maybe in the middle of washing the dishes you'd remember, you'd suddenly realize, it was all me all along. And in that moment, the whole universe would laugh, because the secret had never been hidden anywhere but behind your own eyes. That, you see, is the real meaning of awakening. It isn't something that happens to a person. It's the universe remembering its own face. It's the hide-and-seek game reaching the peekaboo moment where the cosmic child bursts into laughter. But what a strange and magnificent game it is. For in order to make it convincing, you had to forget completely. You had to feel small, vulnerable, mortal. You had to believe in beginnings and ends, in right and wrong, in you and me. Otherwise the game wouldn't work. The joy of finding yourself would vanish if you never truly thought you were lost. This is why life includes suffering not as punishment, but as the necessary darkness that makes light visible. It's why there's death not as a tragedy, but as the curtain that allows the next act to begin. The forgetting is part of the play. Without it, consciousness could never taste reunion. And so, the mystics say, Lila, the divine play. Everything is the dance of the one appearing as many. Every birth is God hiding. Every awakening is God remembering. You are not a soul trapped in a body. You are the infinite pretending to be finite for the thrill of discovery. When you finally see this, really see it, you stop taking life quite so seriously. You stop fighting the tide. You realize that even your striving, your confusion, your longing for truth are part of the same divine trick. You were never outside the game. You were the game itself. The secret, then, is not to win or to escape, but to play beautifully. To see every joy and sorrow as part of the same melody. To laugh, knowing that you and the cosmos are not two. This is why laughter is the sound of enlightenment. When you laugh, you momentarily stop being a person and become pure joy, pure vibration, pure recognition. You dissolve into the play. And when the laughter fades, you return to your role, parent, student, lover, wanderer. As naturally as the ocean forms another wave, you continue the game. Because what else is there to do? You are eternity, pretending to be busy. So the next time you look in the mirror, don't ask, who am I? Ask, who's playing me right now? Because the one behind the mask is the same one behind every mask, every face, every atom. And that one never tires of the game. Because in every hiding, there is the joy of being found again. The game has no end, because there was never a real beginning. There was only this, the eternal play of forgetting and remembering, the hide and seek of the divine. And when you finally see that, you realize something both hilarious and humbling. You've been God all along, trying very hard not to laugh. Yes, the ego's last trick, the cleverest illusion of all. You see, even when the ego begins to suspect that it is a dream, it does not surrender gracefully. It says, I see now, I must become egoless. I shall conquer my ego. And in that very moment, it has smuggled itself in through the back door. It's rather like a thief dressing up as a policeman to investigate his own crime. The self tries to dissolve itself, and in doing so, only makes itself stronger. The me that says, I will let go, is still clinging to the idea of being the one who lets go. We are addicted to the feeling of control. We want to drive life like a car, steering toward pleasure, braking at pain. We imagine there's a little pilot inside our skull, managing the machinery, making choices, authoring thoughts. But who is this pilot? Have you ever found it? When you look inward for the controller, all you find are thoughts, sensations, impulses, all arising spontaneously, like raindrops on a window. You don't choose your next thought any more than you choose your heartbeat. They simply happen. Life happens. The tragedy and the comedy is that we spend our whole lives pretending to be in charge of what's already flowing perfectly on its own. The river doesn't need a captain to find the sea. This illusion of control, that's the ego's fortress. It builds walls of intention and defense, declaring, I must be this and not that. I must succeed, not fail. I must survive, not perish. But every wall we build keeps us from the very flow that gives us life. To be alive is to be vulnerable. It's to move with the dance, not to choreograph it. When you try to direct the cosmic symphony, you only make noise. But when you stop conducting and simply listen, you realize the music has been playing you all along. This is why all spiritual traditions speak of surrender. Not surrender as defeat, oh no, but surrender as discovery. The realization that you never had to control anything in the first place. The world was spinning just fine before you were born, and it will spin beautifully long after you are gone. Letting go isn't something you do. It's something that happens when you see clearly that there is no one to do it. You can't force it, just as you can't make yourself fall asleep. You can only create the conditions for it to happen by stopping the effort to control. The moment you truly relax, when you stop trying to breathe, stop trying to think, stop trying to be, life rushes in. The air breathes you, thoughts arise and fade, existence lives itself through you. And you realize, in a burst of quiet laughter, that this was always the case. The ego, poor thing, has been standing on the stage taking bows for an orchestra that never needed a conductor. The symphony plays itself. The dancer is the dance. The doer is the doing. Now, when you see this, the fear that has haunted you, the fear of death, of loss, of being out of control, simply evaporates, because there's no one left to be afraid. The wave has remembered it is water. And this, I might add, is why enlightenment cannot be achieved. You cannot get it any more than you can grab a handful of sunlight. The very effort keeps you in the shadow. But when the effort stops, when you let the light fall naturally, everything is illuminated. So, my friends, don't make a project out of awakening. Don't try to manufacture surrender. Just notice that life is already happening, effortlessly, right now. Notice that your next thought is as mysterious and spontaneous as the song of a bird or the flicker of lightning. The ego's final illusion is that it could manage life. But life is unmanageable, and that's the beauty of it. When you stop trying to control the flow, you begin to float. When you stop resisting change, you become change itself. And that, you see, is freedom. Not the freedom to have things your way, but the freedom from having to have a way at all. So let the ego play its tricks. Smile at it. It's just the universe pretending to be nervous about its own reflection. In the end, it will laugh too, because even the ego is part of the cosmic game. A wave pretending to be apart from the sea, just for fun. And when that laughter comes, soft, deep, unforced, you'll understand why the sages always smile, because they know the secret. There's nothing to let go of, and no one to do the letting go. There's only the eternal flow and the laughter of realizing you were never separate from it. And now, at the end of our little journey, which, of course, is only another beginning, let's come back to silence for a moment. You see, everything we've been saying about life and death, about consciousness, about the cosmic play, all of it points to one thing, that there is something in you which never began and therefore can never end. Something utterly still, utterly free, utterly untouched by the rise and fall of worlds. That something is not a thing. It has no name, no form, no age. You cannot see it or hold it, because it is what sees and holds. It is the witness, the great space of awareness, in which this entire experience of you and the world appears. So now, let's look directly at that. Right now, thoughts are floating through your mind. You can watch them, they come, they go, like clouds crossing the sky. Some are bright, some are heavy, some vanish before they even form. And yet, something remains as they pass the sky itself. That sky, that still awareness, is what you are. The body changes, the feelings shift, the world spins, ages, renews itself. But the awareness that knows all of this does not change. It was present when you were a child, it is present now, and it will be present long after this body has returned to dust. Think for a moment of dreamless sleep. Every night, the entire world disappears. No name, no thought, no memory, no me. Yet when you awaken, you say, "Ah, I slept well." Who is it that knew the peace of that sleep? It is the same awareness that listens to these words now, the same consciousness that watches the stars through your eyes. And so, when you die, nothing truly ends. The body falls away like a leaf in autumn, but the tree of life remains, and you, as that eternal witness, remain with it. You were never the leaf. You were the light shining through it all along. This is why the sages say, he who dies before he dies does not die when he dies. Because death only frightens the one who believes he is the body, the story, the separate self. When you see that what you are is beyond form, death becomes nothing more than a change of scenery, a silence between two songs. In this silence, all the noise of becoming dissolves. You no longer ask, what will happen to me? Because you realize there is no me. There is only the endless unfolding of the whole, breathing itself in and out of existence. So, my friends, if you wish to meditate on death, do not think of graves or ghosts or endings. Simply close your eyes and watch your breath. Inhale, life enters. Exhale, life leaves. Between the two, there is a stillness. A moment where nothing moves, and yet everything is. That stillness is death and life at once. The pause between notes that makes the music possible. The eternal witness untouched, unbroken, unafraid. Now, look within yourself and see that it has always been here. Before you were born, it was. While you live, it is. When you die, it remains. You are not a person walking through time. You are time walking through eternity. You are eternity pretending to walk through time. And once this is seen, truly seen, all fear vanishes, because you recognize that there was never anything to lose, never anyone to save. There is only this, the great laughing mystery of being forever playing hide and seek with itself. So when your time comes, do not resist, do not cling. Smile at death as you would an old friend, for it is simply the universe turning the page, ready to tell its next story. And as that story begins, the same awareness, the same luminous silence will look out again through new eyes and say once more, as it has for eternity, "Ah, here I am." So, my friends, take a breath, feel it come and go. The in-breath, the out-breath, the stillness between. That right there is the entire secret. The beginning, the middle, the end. The silence, the song, and the silence again. You have never been born. You will never die. You are the eternal witness, watching the universe dance and smiling quietly at the beauty of its own reflection.